Hi everyone, here's the book chemist once again, and today I'm reviewing Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison, an American classic, a staple on syllabuses of American literature in universities. Invisible Man is a novel I've been told by lots of people is very difficult and very harsh and very boring and very unpleasant as a reading experience. And if it is unpleasant at times, it is only because it talks about kind of unpleasant topics, very often. But that's, it's function, it's a good thing in its own way. It's not difficult at all, I think. I was expecting some kind of modernist, complex, experimental stream of consciousness monster. This is nothing of the sort. It is actually pretty straightforward as a novel, and it is also quite thrilling. Its plot is actually quite exciting, and there's lots of action in it, and like good action. The point is that it is a very dense book, and it reads very much like a classic, even though it was published in the 1950s. What I mean is, expect action, expect thrills, but also expect long paragraphs and long passages dedicated to the convoluted mind of the main character, to reflections on the state of his own relationship with American society at large, to the state of his mind, to the state of his belief in humanity and in the possibility for others to be good friends to him as an African-American youth in the US. If you don't know anything about Invisible Man, one thing you should know is that it is about African Americans and the state of their position in society in the American of the early 20th century, the first half of the century, and this is a book about racism. And that means kinda nothing, it means shit. Lots of books are about racism, but this is a book that, through its plot and through its characters, which is the best way of doing things in books, shows the complicated way and the complex nature of racism and why it is such a tenacious and horrible monster to slay. Racism doesn't really mean that some people hate African Americans and some don't. It means also wondering whether some people who maybe support African American communities and flood them with money, are they doing it because they believe in the good of these people? Are they doing it because they use them as tokens of their own salvation or of their own political career? Are they doing it because they are basically good or because they are horrible racists themselves? There's a beautiful scene in this book in which one of the narrator's friends, let's say a colleague of his, asks him to sing because he likes the way African Americans sing. And everyone is very indignant because they go like, oh, you can't ask him that, that's awfully racist. But the main character kinda has doubts because he goes, well, if they like the way I sing, because of some kind of stereotype, is that really bad? I mean, is singing something that should turn into an occasion for fights and quarrels and stuff like that? Those are only some of the very various things that make racism such a bitch and such a human horror and a stain on our society, even today, of course. And some of the things that make this novel an extremely complex and multifaceted narrative. It also relates closely to the main idea of the book, the idea of being invisible. This is not a novel about people who are actually invisible, or is it though? Because one thing I find fascinating about Invisible Man is that it walks a very fine line between being an almost naturalist novel, a novel about society and its the horrible things in it, and a very sincere and straightforward novel about how life for the lower classes is, and speculative fiction and occasional elements of fantasy, of wonder. And the idea of the Invisible Man in this book, even though it might appear as some kind of metaphor for, of course, being invisible to the eyes of society, of the government, of whatever, of the everyday person out in the streets, I'm not sure up to which point it is a metaphor, because occasionally in this book it looks like it's not. It looks like the guy is actually invisible, especially at the beginning and the end of it. And in other points you find reflections on the powers of words, on the magical power of words and speech, and those moments too kinda invest the novel with an aura of supernatural which is very thin. It's it's easy to underestimate, but I believe it kinda balances the social and political concerns of the novel. In the same way, this is a heavily politicized novel, about, for instance, the American left, the American socialist and communist parties, but at the same time shows how, you know, issues of race, issues of the situation of African Americans in America can never be subordinated to political issues such as those of the left. One of the points articulated by this book is that African Americans don't always talk about race because they choose to, it's because they can't help doing that. It's because everyone at every moment looks at them as African American, and thus it's impossible for them to forget about the race and embrace some kind of brotherhood in the name of whatever ideal, just because that will be convenient for other ethnic groups in the country. Well, I'm talking about heavy stuff, politics and race and shit, and I usually don't do that on this channel, and I don't want to, but Invisible Man is that kind of book. It's the kind of book that will turn every one of you, even the most dedicated escapist, into a kind of political debater. This is the kind of book that asks such important questions that you can't help discuss them. You really can't avoid the topics mentioned in this book, also because recent years have confirmed that Western society is not yet some kind of post-racial paradise, but still has some issues that need to be resolved. That said, going back to the actual narrative, very thrilling, as I said at the beginning, lots of changes in setting and vibe and atmosphere. One of the things I was a bit confused about is that there's a quote on the front of my book that says that this is a savagely funny book, and I was like, no, it's not. A similar thing happened to me with Vineland by Thomas Pynchon. Everyone says it's hilarious. I think it's a terribly depressing novel. This one too, I think, is really, really sad in the way it shows very sincerely some of the bleakest aspects of race relationships in America. At the same time, it's true, it has a strong vein of dark humor, bleak humor, and it's not laugh out loud fun, but once you reread one or two passages a few times, you realize the hidden humor nested within them. And yeah, there are some very colorful characters and some very terrible characters, some great villains in here. It's really a book with awesome villains, very believable, very dreadful. All things considered, it's a book that avoids simplification. It's not really a picaresque novel, as in a novel about journeying through America and seeing its many sides and experiencing different things. It's not really a social novel about the value of politics or political issues or the condition of the lower and working classes in America. It's mostly a novel about a guy who has, in his own words, a bottomless capacity for being a fool. That's one thing he has, and through his eyes, through the eyes of someone, people are always screaming and shouting at because he doesn't understand shit. You yourself will learn about his society and his life, and will have his same naivete. I mean, he is naive, and you are naive, and you won't be by the end, by the time you reach the end of this book, because lots of horrible shit will have happened to you, but this is not that kind of disturbing, bleak, I don't believe in humanity anymore kind of book. It's actually a very illuminating book, and one that shows you the way people can avoid ignoring the problems of society, and at the same time focusing on changing it, on, like, you know, constructive change. As a novel, it's thrilling, it is very dense, lots of heavy reflections, lots of heavy stuff in here. If you're reading it for pleasure, it will take some dedication, because, I mean, I understand if you come home at 9 p.m. after, you know, your day in the mines of Devon, and you don't feel like immersing yourself in a very thick narrative as this, but you should. There's lots of stuff that's rewarding in here. It's a great American novel. Let me know what you think about Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. Did you find it very difficult? Did you find it very boring? Let me know what passes through your mind in the comments below. Thank you as always for watching, guys. I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.